yesterday morning. Yesterday, we heard from 3 excellent consultants on what it takes to create the great agency cultures. And they also made the case that there's an increasing evidence that investing in well-being provides a clear return on investment. In fact, there's some theories around that for every £1 you spend on well-being, you get £6 back in return. So this is certainly a subject that we should all be taking very seriously as we move into the future, and the whole area of engaging people and creating purposeful places to work. So today, we're going to hear from the leaders of 3 successful award-winning agencies on what they've done to create happy agencies and how that's led to success. So our panel this morning is Ruth Kieran of Circle, Daniel Roby of ThinkJam, and James Endersby of Opinion. And they're going to talk about their wellbeing strategies for a few minutes, maybe up to 10 minutes. We're going to encourage them to really dig deep and tell us all their little secrets of how they've managed to run very, very successful agencies. And my recommendation is you listen carefully and steal shamelessly any ideas that you think might work for you in your agency, because these are the inner secrets of success. At the end, we'll have time to open it up for questions. So going through, if you can think of any questions, by all means, pop them in the chat room, or equally save them up at the end, because we'll come to a gallery view and you'll be able to ask your questions directly to our panelists. So we're going to start actually with James. James is going to talk to us a little bit about some research findings that his company Opinion have done into the state of well-being and mental health in the industry. So I'm going to hand it over to James, who will share his screen and talk you through some of the findings he has.
Brilliant. Thanks, Graham. I'm just getting that into slide mode. I hope you can all see that. Everybody happy? Good. Great. Well, thanks very much, Graham. And it's absolutely privileged to be joining you again this year. We presented similar results last year in different circumstances. Now I'm in my home office, but what a year it's been. And I guess we've all been managing our agencies the best we can. And I think one way of doing things is to learn. And I think it's great. I applaud everybody for being on this session. So what you've got there really on the screen is the front cover of one of our latest reports. The findings, we teamed up with the PRCA. So what you'll hear today, all the findings from this particular study come from the PR industry. But we do similar studies across other Marcoms industries. We teamed up with the Drum last year, for instance, and did a full Marcoms report. We've done the research sector, and we're doing other sectors too. And I can tell you that the findings are fairly similar across. So hopefully some good lessons if you aren't in PR. Lots to learn. So just before I kick off, and very quickly, I think we're all in agreement. We're all on this in this session because we take this quite seriously. But the theory is everybody has mental health or mental well-being. And most of your agency might be all absolutely fine right now and need nothing at all. But there might come a time at some point where they might need to access something, and you could be there for them. And I think the report today throws out 3 recommendations from our latest study, and hopefully, as Graham said, there's something in there for you to shamelessly steal. I hope you can all see that I've just closed the screen for people's faces. So just the audit at a glance. So this we call it a workplace mental well-being audit. We're an insight agency. We work with a variety of different clients, from big brands, small brands, agencies supporting them and their clients, really trying to understand what people think, feel, and do. And that includes employees. And so we have an employee engagement practice area. And all of this comes out of that practice area. And so the team there developed this audit, which we work with clients to help them understand their workforce and then take those recommendations and they can apply them instantly and increase mental well-being, and obviously test and pick that up a year later. If you can't measure it, you don't know how to improve it. So that's the theory. And the questionnaire is really in front of you, summarized. This year with a special number 5 there, COVID-19 module. Of course, we had to consider a different world to the world that we did the research in last year. So I'm not going to dwell too long on this because I really just want to get stuck into the findings. I'm of course happy to share the report. It's on our website as well, and you can get all of the juicy bits because there's lots more. So really, it takes the respondent or the participant or the employee through these 5 sections. The first one is we partnered with the Warwick Medical School, and they have what they call the Warwick Edinburgh Mental Wellbeing Scale, which has been created with the NHS and a number of other bodies. And it's a positive scale, which is quite groundbreaking in mental wellbeing scales, and it really just allows us to understand where that one participant out of the thousands that we obviously surveyed sits in their mental well-being. If you ask someone, they're going to give varying different answers, aren't they? If you just ask them open-ended. So this really fixes them on a scale, and then we're able to tap into what they have available for them at their workplace, and we can see what's missing and what might be affecting their scores. Then we go into overall well-being. We include physical well-being there too. Then mental health at work. We look at stress levels, sources where it's coming from, attitudes towards mental well-being, and how free they are and how they feel they can open up at work. Because I think that's part of the problem. The culture change that needs to happen is employees need to feel comfortable to be able to take a sick day for a sore leg, just as they would for mental well-being issues like anxiety, etc. And often people hide that. We find. And then support at work, the awareness of current support. Are they aware of the various initiatives, the usage, can they access it? And then some ideas, because it's important to listen to them too. And then a COVID-19 module, this working from home period that we've been in. And there's some really interesting insights from this section specifically as we start to reshape what the office might look like in the future. Where it might be, and etc. etc. And there's a very mixed pattern there. So I think really pay attention to that if you are running an agency. Cracking straight in, because I don't want to take too much time on this, but there are 3 main recommendations coming out of this report and this wave of the research. Firstly, I'm going to go through the importance of sharing stories. And then I'm going to talk about how agencies should promote existing initiatives better and introduce new ones, of course. And we can see which ones work and which don't work based on the fact that we know what their mental well-being scores are, and we can link that through driver analysis to understand how some perform better and some don't. And then learn from the lockdown. Clearly, we're playing in a different dimension this year and beyond. So what can we learn and how can we build back better, perhaps? So the first recommendation, the importance of sharing stories. So of course, researcher on the line here, you're going to get lots of stats, but hopefully that builds the story here. So you can see the 2 lines there in front of you. Well, firstly, let's go to the right. So 90% from this survey of PR professionals from across the UK, 90% have said that they've struggled with their mental health, compared with 89% in 2019. So it's absolutely flat. There's no difference there statistically. But we've seen here a decline in the mental wellbeing score. So that's that Warwick Edinburgh measure from 2019. Now the grey line are UK workers, because we have a national benchmark too. It's really helpful to be able to compare. So what does it mean? PR in isolation, okay, that's interesting, but what does it mean against the national workforce of all people in employment at the moment? And you can see that PR sits below the national level. Both have declined, the PR industry slightly more. But there is a lot of good news in this year's report, which is absolutely brilliant. So the overall theme of the report and the research is that huge progress has been made in the PR industry, and we are becoming more open about mental health problems. Employees are finding it becoming more confident to be able to talk about their mental health, so or take time off in this instance. So 72% of those who did take time off for their mental health actually told their employer the exact reason in this reported wave, and that's versus 40% in 2019. So a hugely significant shift in attitudes there from the employee, which means awareness is increasing of the fact that you should feel comfortable, and agencies are doing a great job too. but there's still room for improvement, of course. So the culture has started to shift as those who spoke up saw benefits. So that's the percentage of people who told someone at work about their mental health problems. 2019 at 43, and we're up to almost 60% in 2020. The rest still not comfortable, but that is progress. And these are the experiences. So when they did open up, these are this is what they experienced and have now fed back. 72% that said that work was understanding and supportive. Look at that, up from 52%. Just focusing in on two of them. As I said, 72% said that they were supportive, and 10% said they didn't take it seriously as they should have. And that's down, which is good, from 22%. So we really do have some movement there. There are lots of other stats. I'm going to save those for you if you are interested to read through the report, just in the interest of time. Workplace attitudes towards mental health are changing for the better. You can see that. My colleagues right at the top, my colleagues would be supportive if I was struggling with my mental health. Improved perception there. I would be supported at work if I was struggling with my mental health has also improved. My workplace takes mental health of their employees seriously. Improvements across the line. And then you see it flip because those are negative statements. I would feel embarrassed at the bottom, third from the bottom. I would feel embarrassed if my colleagues discovered I was struggling with my mental health. And good news is that's declined slightly, or we could say that's pretty flat, to be honest. Let's move on. So these are the two that we sort of we highlight, which we find really encouraging. That colleagues would be supportive, and that workplaces take mental well-being of their employees seriously. However, less people are taking time off for their mental health, and workload is still an issue. So workload, time and time again across all Marcom's sort of sub-industries, comes out as the top stressor for respondents. And this year, COVID-related stresses are in number 2, and I'm sure they're related slightly, of course, but it's that workload issue that I think agencies really need to make sure that they're managing. 31% taking time off for their mental health, down now to 26%. So less people taking time off, and too much work being the reason for most of them. So 48%, again, that's up from 2019. So just too much work to take any time off is where their heads are at. 46% felt that their mental health problem was not bad enough to need a day off. And that's actually fair enough for the majority of them. Of course, that might be the case. But that's something to pay attention to, of course. There's still work to do in changing attitudes towards mental health in the workplace, despite all that good news up above. 46% didn't tell anyone at work about their mental health problem because they didn't think it was necessary to tell their employer. Again, you might look at that and actually go, well, quite a few of them, maybe it isn't necessary. And of course, it's never necessary, but you do want to be in a place to be supportive if it's affecting their work. 31% didn't tell anyone at work about their mental health problem because they didn't know how to talk about it. Okay, and that's up from 19% in 2019. And 30% didn't tell anyone about their mental health problems because they were embarrassed. So a small quote there. Just to bring it to life, we obviously go into a lot of detail in the audit and the survey. This person, I've had bouts of anxiety in the past, usually to do with workload, but didn't feel like I could tell anyone, or it would look like I couldn't deal with the pressure of the job. I think stress and pressure kind of comes with the role when it's that busy. That is just agency life. Okay, so that's the first recommendation. Okay, slight decline in mental well-being scores. The culture around mental health has started to shift, which is great. People who spoke up saw benefits, and attitudes around mental health have seen large improvements, yet there has been a decline in the number of PR professionals taking time off, with workload being the issue there. So we recommend from this having a more open conversation about mental health, a more open conversation about mental health in the workplace, and sharing of stories amongst those who have opened up will help with this much needed culture shift. It's all about culture. It's all about culture in this part, we think, and making people feel more comfortable and feel that it's appropriate to say that you taking a day off because you have a cold should be treated exactly the same in your agency culture as it would be if you had issues with your mental well-being. The second recommendation: promote existing initiatives and introduce new ones. Quite obvious, really, but there's stats which help prove all of this is very important. So working from home and space to take breaks, that's obviously if you're in the office, are the most common initiatives offered by employers. Remote working and work from home, offered by 68% of employers. Space for people to take breaks. Again, let's picture that as being the working office. Flexible working hours, that's very different to working from home. Just a point there, is also really, really beneficial. And providing information about the techniques to improve mental health and having that freely available to employees. Mental health first aiders, employee assistance programs, and exercise and recreational classes are the top of a long list of initiatives that we've tested. And these are the ones that we found had hugely positive impacts on employees' mental well-being scores. Those who've made use of certain initiatives, of course, have seen benefits on their mental well-being, and here's where we sort of really prove that they do benefit employees. So the the WEM WBS, that's the Warwick Edinburgh Mental Well-being Score, I think, that we asked right at the beginning, really helps us here, because you can see that remote working has a real impact on those who use the initiative in their business. They have higher mental well-being scores than those who haven't accessed it. Flexible working, again, and all of them across space to take breaks, etc. Again, all of this in the report as well. There's still demand from employees for the introduction of more programs, of course, because remember, we do ask them as well, which is really important, what they would like. And this one comes out quite high. The ability to wake up one morning and just go, you know what, I'm just not feeling up to it today. I've reached capacity, and in terms of perhaps let's just use anxiety, and I'm going to take a mental health day. That's quite popular. Access to a counsellor, of course, monitoring of mental well-being staff via staff survey, flexible working hours, and internal mentoring schemes also come up quite favourable. So again, remember, this recommendation in this section was all around championing and making sure that employees are aware of your existing. Agencies are doing such a great job. However, we do find that some employees just aren't aware of how to access them. So constant reminder and good comms around that, internal comms is important. And also to ask your team what they want as well. You can do that in an anonymous survey, etc. Would help. Finally, learning from the lockdown. Okay, so here, unsurprisingly, you see that split between last year and this year. Who worked from home last year? 47% were able to work from home. In the PR industry, overnight, everybody shifted to working from home. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. So 96% from who took the survey a couple of months ago said that they would like to work from home in the future. But now we need to pay attention, because when you dig down and you look at the statistics, on the left, you've got 42% saying that working from home, and let's take this as permanent working from home, not a blend, permanent working from home during COVID, 42% said that it decreased their mental well-being. We've got slightly and significantly there. So 31% slightly decreased and 11 significantly decreased their mental well-being. And on the other side, on the right of the chart, you've got the 40% that actually said it slightly increased or it significantly increased my well-being. So you have two camps, really, potentially amongst your employees, and you really need to pay attention to this when we think when restructuring the future of your workplace. And those that work from home saw huge benefits, of course. I for one, really enjoyed not being on the district line crush every morning, and 66% really enjoyed not having to commute. And that's improved their mental well-being. 55% said they felt more relaxed, and of course 51 had an improved work-life balance. But not everything about working from home has been easy, of course. There are a few drivers of stress from working from home. Struggle to keep in contact with colleagues has been had a negative impact. They find it hard to draw boundaries between work and rest. So close the laptop, probably start up again on your phone 5 minutes later perhaps. Working longer hours, now they're home and work from home has made them feel more isolated. So there are some real things there to look out for, and there are a few comments that we picked up on the right. So missing support and the banter, looking after a small child with work. Obviously, we had an extended period of homeschooling for parents who are attending right now. I'm sure you remember that part, which was extremely stressful. Then, of course, go to the other scales where you've got people living by themselves in flats, or people in big crowded flat shares. All of those things were very tough for people. So the recommendation summary there is working from home has clear and obvious benefits for well-being. However, there are also positives to office working, quite clearly. And there are those two camps, don't forget them. When you plan your future offices, and the key is to be flexible and encourage a culture that works on a person-by-person basis, which is what we're recommending. So thanks very much for that. I'm going to stop sharing and hand back to Graham.
Thank you, James. That was really insightful, and I think there's some lessons for all of us in there, in the, both positively and negatively. We've still got work to do, as it said, and this whole development towards a more open, inclusive culture is obviously critical. I'm going to hand over to Ruth now, who's going to talk about life at Circle and how they have made moves to improve the well-being and to keep people really on their toes. So Ruth is also a co-chair of the Alliance of Independent Agencies. So welcome, Ruth. Tell us your secret.
Oh, I don't know if I've got a secret. I'm going to try and make sure I can't see myself, because that's really disconcerting. I'm going to look at you, Graham, because otherwise that's a bit worrying. That's really interesting from what James has said about there's so many different pieces here. And I'm going to start talking about probably internal comms initially, because I think one of the things, obviously mental health has been hugely impacted by COVID. But one of the things that we try to do at Circle, and for your background, we're a PR agency of about 40 people. We have two offices, one in London and one in Beaconsfield in Buckinghamshire, and we are an employee-owned independent agency, primarily focusing on food and drink, FMCG and retail clients, so PepsiCo, Ferrero, Mars Pet Care, Birdseye, all your sort of high street family favourites. My kids think I work in a wonderful place because I constantly come back with J2O and Walker's crisps and things. Totally unhealthy. But our team, typical kind of PR agency makeup of sort of, probably quite young people who have had quite an interesting time of late. But one of the things that we try to do is make sure that there's really open and clear communication with our team. So not only sort of one way, but two ways. So during COVID, we've made sure that all our team are really clear about the business performance of the agency. So we have weekly company meetings. I also have been sending weekly company updates on our financial performance all the way through the lockdown, to make sure that the team are aware of what's happening, because I think the anxiety that everyone feels with COVID has been huge, and actually people's anxiety about job security has been paramount, and I'm sure everyone feels that. So making sure the team know about what's happening, whether that's good or bad, or clients pulling budgets, moving budgets, things, the state of the finance of the business has been really important to us. And I think, we're all adults, and it's really important for our teams to know what's happening and to be part of those decisions. During the main quarter two, we did furlough a small number of people, and it was really important for them to understand why that decision was made. And it was to make sure that the broader good of the business, but we explained exactly why that was happening, all the timescales. We also run the Happiness Index, which is a sort of free tool that monitors people's feelings on a weekly basis, and we talk about those scores every single week. It's fascinating how Boris Johnson can really affect people's mood, and that horrible week, I think a week or so ago, where they drip fed us that horrible, are we all going to be locked down, our team's mood plummeted, and actually that's been really fascinating, that there's some things that I'm used to controlling how generally how the team feel, or being able to impact that, and sometimes you just can't, and we all have to acknowledge that we are out of control, and sometimes that, you know, I cannot cheer the team up no matter what because of, you know, Boris's decisions or inabilities or whatever. So that's been very interesting, but we're talking to the team about that all the time, and acknowledging that we're all feeling the same way. We have an annual partner survey, so that's on every school, and this year we're using Great Places to Work, which is a very thorough process, and there's some general scores which benchmark you against the industry, but also you can add in your own kind of questions. And for example, as we're an employee-owned business, making sure that the team are fully aware of the benefits of that, if they're feeling that that's not being explained properly, how we can do better, if our vision and values are coming through to them, etc. So that's been really useful. We have forums at every single level, so right from, you know, interns, office manager, finance team, up to kind of director levels. Everyone has a kind of a forum where they can, you know, share their experiences. So the AEs all get together and talk about, and account managers. So, and we have chairs that feed that back to the senior team, and we action all those sort of concerns. So that's been really good. We have buddy schemes. So, and that during COVID has been important because, as we know, junior people, particularly those who started just before lockdown and are learning on the job, it's incredibly difficult for them to understand and develop when they haven't got someone they can listen to or by osmosis. So making sure that now the offices, we have partially opened office, that they can come in alongside some more senior people to kind of learn from and ask those silly questions, because it can be very intimidating when you first start. We have Couch Club, which is for senior mentors, for senior people to mentor people across the agency, so it's not just your line manager. And so those things from a communication point of view are really important. So making sure that the team are able to ask questions. We've also got, you know, a suggestions portal and things like that, so people can ask anonymous questions and not feel like they've got to put a hand up at a company meeting. We have a team of wellbeing warriors who came into their own during lockdown, who have been phenomenal, and we've got first, you know, mental health first aiders, and these guys have been incredible. I think they're quite tired because it's taken a lot out of them. You know, we were getting daily wellbeing updates throughout the main height of lockdown. We've had fitness challenges, we've got a virtual pub, we've got all the sort of bells and whistles that I'm sure all of you from agencies have. And I think our industry is amazing at offering the kind of well-being stuff that we all take for granted, because, you know, our industry is fantastic at doing that. So we've had, you know, we had a mental health week, we had virtual cook-off sessions, we've had resilience training. In the past, we've hypnotized the entire team, which was quite bonding, all lying on the floor being hypnotized. Prior to lockdown, we used to have an Ironman trainer who came in twice a week to train us all. So I can highly recommend feeling bonded to your team if you all see each other in lycra, sweating or punching each other with boxing gloves. So that kind of thing. So, and also things like celebrations, celebrating different religious festivals, making sure that we are having sort of, we have a monthly orbs, which is someone who's gone above and beyond. That's a cash prize. So generally kind of every touch point across physical, mental health, your work environment, celebrating and feeling like you're belonging, and fulfillment and recognition. And obviously mental health, I think, has been to the forefront, I think, this last 6 months, and I think we are all very aware that there's only so much we can do as an employer, and we do our best, and we obviously have things like counselling lines and employee assistance, but there is only so much that we can do above and beyond, you know, within the working day. Of flexibility, again, we've got full flexible hours, so that has been brilliant, particularly for carers and parents. But even people who have other responsibilities. We've got someone who has a horse and needs to leave work at 4 o'clock to go and deal with her horse. So full flexibility has been, and will continue to do that. I think the point about working from home, some people find it decreases their mental health, and others increasing it is really, really significant, because I think for those of us who are lucky to have, you know, outside space and are not flat sharing, it is much easier, I think, but particularly for my younger team who are in flat shares or have a bedroom, it's been really difficult. And we've been very open about letting people go back home to up north or wherever they want to be, and spend time with their family and not be concerned about coming to the office. So I think that's it. It's a kind of whistle-stop tour, I'm sure, but if anyone's got any questions.
Well, Ruth, that's brilliant, and I will come back to you with questions. So I'm going to ask you about translating that into the agency's success, even if it's on business metrics like absentee days or losing people or things like that. But I'm going to ask you later, after we've heard from Daniel, how you think that contributes to the successful agency, because you're clearly doing an enormous number of initiatives centered on people. So I'm guessing your people really feel that they're included, they've got a voice, all of that stuff.
I hope so. I mean, yeah, I hope so. We'll talk about it later, but
Yeah, I'll come back to you. So I would like to open the discussion up. So I'm going to hand over to Daniel, who's going to talk to us about his wellbeing strategies and again how that's led to success for him.
Hi Graham, thanks. So thanks for having me. For those of you who don't know, a quick note on ThinkJam. We're a marketing agency. We've got teams in London and LA. Our primary client base is entertainment clients, so working for the likes of Disney and Warner and HBO and Netflix. So we've seen nothing short of an enormous roller coaster in the last 6 months, where the entertainment industry's just stopped. So I'll give you some guidance on how we navigated that at the beginning. We've got mixed teams and mixed demographics, where we've got designers, we've got developers, but then we've got publicists and social and analysts, and the various skills of those people bring their own challenges and opportunities for how we can create a culture. We're also now 100% remote. So James, I was keen on your statistics, but we took a big step quite early on in COVID, where we closed both our London office and our LA office. So we are certainly for the foreseeable future permanently remote now. Doesn't mean we won't get offices, and it doesn't mean we won't have time together as soon as things change, but certainly it's had an enormous impact on our bottom line and our cost saving, where we don't have any of those liabilities or headaches or aggravation at the moment. For us, building a positive culture, successfully managing that culture, it's not an exact science, and it constantly changes, I think is the key. We've definitely had our ups and downs. We've definitely learned from experience. I think it's fair to say we're far from perfect. I mean, even listening to you, Ruth, there's a dozen things I need to add into our list of things that we're not quite doing yet. But there is a lot that we are doing. All of our culture and well-being comes actually quite a lot from our behaviors. We have a set of company behaviors. And it also comes from our company strategy. About 6 or 7 years ago, we set a company strategy, and within that strategy, it was a very long process where we really honed in on what sort of business we wanted to be, the sectors we wanted to approach, the disciplines we wanted to undertake. And even 6 or 7 years on, it still stands the test of time. But there's an important part of that strategy which says we're an employee-centric business. So all of our decisions, principles, behaviors come under that phrase. We talk about it in interviews, we talk about it in appraisals, we talk about it in meetings, and it's how we make decisions. And even some of the enormous decisions that we've made through COVID have been anchored on being employee centric. We have unfortunately let people go, but how we've done that and how we've addressed that is from that phrase. It defines everything for us. It couples with our behaviors. They're equally important, and we set 4 behaviors that we debated and discussed actually as a whole company. My senior leadership team had meetings too, and we had a consultant help us through the process, that helped us shape what and how we wanted to act as a business, and how we wanted to behave to one another and to our clients and from our clients. So we set 4 behaviors, and then they are consistently filtered across the business in everything that we do. One of those behaviors that I think is relevant to this is called We Are ThinkJam. They've all got cute names. But we are Think Jam, and it unpacks into 3 parts. We've got care, we've got family, and we've got nurture. Care, and I'll just read these. Care for your colleagues, clients, and care about your work. Family, have each other's back, have empathy, and have mutual respect. We're more than a team, we're a family. And nurture and develop each other to be the best that they can be. And these are principles that we talk about regularly. The idea is that they help reduce stress, they help us balance workload, they empower where relevant, and they help us as a group support each other. The key thing is, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who, if you've got this, it's not just about having words and having behaviors written down, it's about how you act on them, and it's about how you execute them across the business. Outside of these frameworks, I was going to go through 3 examples or 3 things that we do that relates to our behaviors and then relates to our strategy. Communication, care, and culture, which are really been important through our business and really important certainly in the last 6 months through COVID. Communication for us is key. It's amazing. It's the hardest thing to get right. It's the hardest thing to get wrong. It's the easiest thing to get wrong is making sure that we're communicating up and down the business. And we try and do a lot. We definitely try and do a lot. We're encouraging weekly and bi-weekly check-ins with all members of the team. And actually that's a 2-way street. If you haven't had a check-in, it's really important that you're asking your manager or superior for a check-in. And those one-on-ones, and there's a lot of info on one-on-ones on the internet, they're a process where they're not just to talk about work, but and your job and your campaigns and your projects, but they're actually to talk about wider things. And that includes well-being and mental health and family life and work-life balance. The important rule that I've shared with my team for one-on-ones is it's not for the manager to do the talking. It's actually for the employee or their member of staff, set the agenda, set the tone, set the discussion. It empowers them to share and discuss what they want to discuss. And it's really important, and I encourage that this information flows up the business so we can look at the outliers of where we've got lots of good things going on and people want to get promoted or they're developing or they're ambitious, and then on the other side where people have got problems and challenges. As a business, I'm encouraging people to, I think the phrase, sort of walk the floor and randomly check in with people. It's not just having a time in the diary. It's randomly checking in. Before COVID, lots of coffees, lots of catch-ups, lots of glasses of wine, which I think we all miss with our colleagues. But just checking in and having coffees. As the CEO, I meet people on all levels of the business, and it's amazing to hear the signals, learn what people are up to, learn new trends, and actually keep a really close ear to the ground. Those conversations and those regular check-ins are super important to pick up tons and tons of data. Practically, as a business, we bookend the week. We've got a huddle on a Monday and we've got a huddle on a Friday. They're really nice. On the Monday morning, everyone goes around and they talk about what they've got going on in the week, what they're doing, what they're setting out to do, and any keynotes. And certainly we talk about the weekend. And on a Friday, we share successes, we share shout outs. And it's really important for us that we're doing little and often celebrations and congratulations on work, team wins, great feedback from clients. And recognizing everyone across the business. I think people really like it when their names are mentioned and they're part of the team. So we find that frequent praise goes a long way. We do a weekly social. So we do, because we've got US and UK. We originally had in the UK, it was called Wine Down Wednesdays, where we actually did have wine and cheese and beer and all sorts. We now do Wine Down and Wine Up Wednesdays, and we actually joined the London team and the LA team. Through COVID, we've been doing some amazing exercises. There's tons of stuff online, from Pictionary to guessing games to all sorts of fun trivia. And they're really fun. They're half an hour. They don't take up too much time. We put people into Zoom breakout rooms, mixed groups, so everyone in both locations is mixing, and that's been a lot of fun. On the business side, we do a monthly company meeting. It actually used to be a monthly missive that I'd write, or most months to be fair, but I'd write an update on the business and what we're doing and how we're getting on. Now we do this in person, and again, it's the whole company, and it's the only note I've ever sent to my team where I've said it's a mandatory meeting unless you tell me that you can't come, because I think it's super important that people attend and hear firsthand what's going on. We have our monthly board report, and I share the information from that board report in that monthly meeting. My COO shares the financials and our position. We talk about HR. We've talked about working from home. We do what's called a 5x5, which is you've got 5 minutes to show 5 slides on a project, and that's encouraged for everyone across the business. It was a tip I learned from a US agency, and we've done a few of those, and they're brilliant. And people, put their slides together, talk through, and it encourages different people from around the business to talk. So the key with those monthly meetings is we're sharing good news and bad news, so everyone feels like they're up to date. I personally read lots of books, and I know other people read lots of books, so we're sharing those around, and we were sharing lots of books to read and book clubs, whether that's on business, on well-being, on mental health, or just good reads. And then more recently, we've done quite a lot of surveys, certainly as we have entered the phase where we've got no office at the moment, but understanding what people need. We've done a massive piece of work on our diversity and inclusion, which is off the back of a couple of very big surveys. And we've done a big piece of work on our we're calling it working from anywhere, because actually working from home is not explicit. You can work from a coffee shop, you can work from a pub, you can work from a friend's house, it doesn't matter. But we've done a lot of surveys, and those surveys really allow us to get glean a really big insight into what people are really feeling. And it's amazing what sort of commentary people put in. One or two of them have been anonymous, which is where we've seen a lot of insight from people, and then we can action them and we can see trends. The second thing is care, and a few things that we're doing. Every member of our team has got health cover, which we really encourage people to use. There's a lot of, a good one that we use for everyone is Westfield Health. It's really good value, tons of benefits. It's physio, it's opticians, it's call lines for support, and we give that to every member of staff. We did have mental wellbeing first aiders, but unfortunately we did make some cuts earlier in the year, and that person's role is no longer, but it was working very well, and I'd like us to have it back as soon as we can. We give everyone half days off on their birthdays. We give everyone half days off for elections. It came up in a survey recently, certainly in the US. And the US is slightly different to the UK, but it's amazing how important local elections, government elections, create stress for people and create worry for people. And certainly the younger generation who are getting into this through social, to give them their time. And we're really flexible with people with bereavements and personal needs and general mental health. We do count holiday days and we do have tracking, but we are quite relaxed when it comes to people's needs, and give as much flexibility as we can. It doesn't cost us anything, and it adds a ton of respect and value to that person, and it takes all the strain off of them when they've got difficult things going on. We've seen, I think, a result of some of this stuff is a significant improvement on our work-life balance. I think COVID has changed that. But in the last few years, we've been actively monitoring people's hours, people's workloads as much as humanly possible, with a variety of systems, and some of them are good and some of them are bad, but trying to create a balance where people aren't working silly hours. A lot of people say, and I think it was on one of your stats, James, it is what it is, and it is agency life. I really don't believe in that sentence. I think it is what you make it, and it is what we make it. So helping people and encouraging people that tomorrow's another day, and to go home, or talking and sharing workload is super important. We encourage a lot of people to take days off, which I've already mentioned. And lastly, we share quite a few stories, or we try to share stories. I've personally shared stories with my team about my anxiety or depression or tough times or issues with parents, whatever it is, to make everyone feel as human as possible. And we have had sessions in the past and meetings in the past where at the beginning of those meetings, even if you know everyone, it's a brilliant technique where you've got to share 3 facts about yourself. One framework that we used that was really good is where you grew up, anything about your siblings, and one thing no one would ever know. And they become, as I mentioned earlier, quite important for bonding and understanding and really getting to know your colleagues well. And what we found is more people start to share how they feel and what they've got going on. And then lastly, culture. So we've got a culture group. I call it the Culture Club, but we've got a team in London and a team in LA, and they work on a lot of important stuff. Socials, virtual meetings, whether we're doing Bake Off, we do charity days, we do coffee mornings, we did the Macmillan Cancer Coffee Morning recently. We celebrate people's Jam-iversary. So we celebrate people's the years they've been in the business, which is really nice. It's slowed down a little bit with COVID, where we haven't all got together. But this group, they're empowered as a core group and they're allowed to do what they like, and they're allowed to create initiatives, and they've got, a steer, but as they see fit to arrange initiatives. The key thing for us, which is my final point, the key thing for us for the culture group is it's not led by management. It's led by the people who have volunteered to do it, and they're empowered to do what they want, how they do it. Management don't get involved, because we'd only mess it up. But it's got to come from within, and then it's authentic.
Daniel,
and that's my
thank you very much. Well done. That's really insightful. Lots of that, and I love the fact that there's the culture is almost documented, so people know what's expected of them, which is brilliant. James, we have just over 10 minutes left, so I'm going to hand over to you, and hopefully we will still get some time in for questions.
Brilliant.
James, over to you. Thanks, you.
Graham. I will race through. I got a list as long as my whole notebook here from Ruth and Daniel. So thank you. Those are some inspiring points. I love the happiness index researcher here. Sorry, but that sounds amazing every day. And Daniel, I've got the 5x5. Love it. At Opinion, and both of you spoke about culture, and I think I spoke about that in the slides as well. Culture is so important around happiness, well-being, and what that does to people's daily experiences at work. One thing that we did probably about 2 years ago, probably about the same time we launched this audit to support our clients, we turned it in on ourselves, and we use this audit on Opinion employees too, which is hugely beneficial and allows you to have instant moments where you can instantly change things, which is fantastic. So I'll talk about that in a bit. But what we did, which we think is quite important, is and really pointed it at me and my performance. And so at Opinion, on an annual basis, we measure revenue growth and employee well-being alongside each other, which you're seeing a number of countries try to do as well. I think New Zealand has spoken about that, Audit, etc., around the happiness and the financial success, GDP and well-being. And so we do that at Opinion. So you have an absolutely cracking year and growth, double digits, and a completely miserable team that's all stressed out and really can't hold it all together. And next year, good luck. So we've tried to do that, and that's really important to us because we have this audit, and it doesn't have to be obviously I'm going to champion our workplace mental well-being audit to the end of the day, but it doesn't have to be that sophisticated in a sense. You can measure it in other ways. So I thought that was quite important to point out, that that's the very tip of the culture, and everything drives that. So you can see almost every day decisions are being made to improve the revenues. Obviously, that's something we all can do quite easily. But at the same time, that attitude's now pivoted into our well-being. Other areas, I'm trying to find the gaps here because Daniel and Ruth have covered so many amazing things. I guess our attitude really goes back to that first slide I had. Everybody has well-being. So I'll talk about well-being and trying to make sure that we have a place for everybody. And a lot of people aren't comfortable talking about their well-being and accessing certain things. And mental well-being, a mental health first aider, which we have a few. That is an amazing initiative, but that could be somebody's worst nightmare, and they'll never access that. So we try and have a range of things, which is exactly what the two have just mentioned. They both have a range of things. So we have. That's how we try and consider it. So we look at all of our individuals and we try and see that there's something for everybody. Again, you mentioned it, Graham, in the introduction. Is it your moral obligation as well? But it also helps create a happy team. So hence we have a number of initiatives. I love Ruth talking about keeping the team updated during COVID. That's something that we've always done and tried to do. We have an agency meeting where the whole agency meets every single Monday afternoon. And like Daniel, it is absolutely compulsory. You have almost permission to push back on a client sometimes if, of course, a space can be found, because it is important to bring that team together for the sake of the business and the growth of the business. And that's where we share good news, bad news, all those things. But as Ruth said, keeping the team updated during this period, especially, an update from me on everything. Anxious times early on. Everybody knew somebody who was, at risk of losing their job, etc. So it was really important to keep the financials right front and center, and our strategy too. And then our strategy about how we're going to sort of move back. And we opened about 4 weeks ago for Borough Centre, so home again. We opened our office on a Thursday, Friday as a hub. We're calling it a hub. We realized that a lot of people didn't want to come in. So we've made no sort of bones about it. There is no pressure, but it's that place to come if you are in that crowded flat. So that was quite important for us. And that's something we're still encouraging, because you still are allowed, if you can't work from home, you still are allowed to go into whatever workplace you have. And of course, it's been redesigned and all that stuff. Our survey audits, I can't speak enough. I mean, you don't have to go to a research agency for something like this. Happy to advise on Messenger or whatever on a few questions you could use, but you could use SurveyMonkey. Just do it. Just get your staff to definitely anonymously, I think, feedback on how things are going, what initiatives are working, what aren't working, and then make sure afterwards, the biggest thing you need to do, of course, is to feedback your response to that. Even the impossible things that you just can't do, make sure you explain why you can't do that. That's just a quick tip on feeding back from surveys, and we do a lot of that. And that's where we spotted a few years ago that work capacity was the biggest driver of stress before we even picked it up in all these audits that I mentioned earlier. And so what we've done is we've linked our capacity team, we call them, so sort of a workflow team, with our well-being team to make sure that both teams are in sync there and can feedback, because that's where we're finding a lot of people at Opinium end up having poor well-being scores. Is because everybody's a trooper, everybody wants to succeed and everything's great and they're taking on work, and sometimes it can get out of hand and you need to be right there for that moment, because sometimes they need help, especially the junior members of the team, to sit down, look at all their projects, and the capacity team can help spread that load. And so we've got a team that specifically looks at that, which I think is quite powerful. For us, we have a confidential counselling service as well, just to speak of that if somebody does need to speak to someone. And that also includes financial advice as well, through a financial advisor. Our well-being team, we have a well-being team, and they organize tons of initiatives during this lockdown period. What's really been great is obviously taking those sessions virtual. We bring in various different specialists. So we have mindfulness training, which is really useful. The other day we did something on sleep and how to improve your sleep, which is hugely beneficial, unless you've got a 2-year-old who you can't really do anything about that, I guess, for now. Career managers. So a lot of agencies have, or a lot of companies have, line managers, the all-powerful line manager, and that's great and that works. We've taken a different approach. So we, of course, on a project or an account, you'll have a line manager style of system where you've got a hierarchy, but everybody at Opinium has a career manager, and the career manager looks after their career, and it's part mentor, part line manager. and then you've got the well-being team looking in. So we've got a number of different teams and individuals looking in on an individual at any one time. So there's almost this matrix style. So no one is just talking to one person and that's it. You get the full experience. That's me, I think. Yeah, those are my tips and hints, and really, I think I have a huge list there from Ruth and Daniel too. So I hope that was useful.
Thank you, James. Really, really great. I can't believe how fast an hour's gone, because I think we could carry on talking for another hour at least. I have a couple of quick questions on the chat room. One is, Ruth, could you explain a bit more about your couch club?
The couch clubs, it's for people to identify. Obviously we have line managers, but often somebody might have really aspire or want to understand how someone more senior has got to where they've got to. So it could be account exec wanting to work with our creative director, and it's monthly informal meetings, and it's not forced upon anyone. But if they say, I really want to spend some time with Chris, he will go for coffee. I mean, this is pre-COVID obviously, but now it's at Zoom. It's so that you can have some informal chats, and it's not linked to your line management, and then often not people you're working directly with. But it's kind of giving some tips and sort of, I've got a difficult situation, how might I handle that? So just making sure that you've got somebody that, if that person feels that person, there's somebody within the team that they could really learn from, that's how they do that. And the buddy scheme is, obviously when people come in new, they are buddied up with someone that can continue ongoing. But if there's somebody who is struggling with a certain area, often it's more junior people who they just haven't cracked something. We buddy them up with someone who's a little bit more senior, who can, the next level up, who can just kind of handhold them, and then they can call them and say, how do I do this, or I don't understand how to do that, or it's because often line managements or in other teams people don't feel comfortable, but if they've got somebody they can have a quiet chat with, or just catch up with and say, I'm struggling on this, or I don't understand this, because often they don't want to look stupid. So there's those two elements.
And on the happiness index, is that something you've created, or is it an external?
No, it's a tool, and I believe that you can get a month's free trial, which you can just implement with your team. So it's just it's an online tool that people can go in at any point. They just tap in the number, and it's basically it's one question: how happy are you feeling? And we have, and it's anonymous. You get some hilarious. And also quite some really important things are being raised, and because it's anonymous, you can't track it obviously in terms of who it is, but you might have an idea about generally where it's coming from. But it is a really, really good tool just to get a kind of a check, and also they benchmark against other businesses. They can do a deep dive, and you can see how you are tracking against other people in the UK or other businesses.
That could be interesting. I'm just going to use this as an ad space, because we at the Alliance are about to launch a thing called People Pulse, and it will be a simple thing, run every quarter, and it will ask questions around how proud are you trusted, do you live the values, do you know where the company's going, are you given development opportunities, do you get a chance to have your voice, things like that. It's simple 9 questions, which we're going to launch this month, and it will, if any agencies answering with more than 6 people, all anonymous, we'll get an individual report, but you'll also get the overall industry report for how proud we all feel and how trusted we feel, etc., etc. We could add happiness to the next one. There's a few more questions coming in. How should we manage the polarized response to working from home? I.e., a lot of people are suffering and a lot of people are enjoying it. How do you actually go about managing that? I guess you start to give people choices.
Yeah, we've given the people the choice. I mean, it feels a bit rebellious keeping our office open and saying, but we've just basically said, if you want to come into the office, you can. We're very COVID secure. We've got a very big open space, and I think it's really important to allow people that flexibility, and to not have an expectation of where they should be. And people will want different things on different weeks. Some weeks you want to be in the office, some weeks you want to be at home.
Brilliant. So it's all about flexibility and choice. Daniel, I've got a question for you, and I know we're seriously running out of time, so hopefully hang on to some people who might have a little bit longer. But Daniel, you clearly set out the behaviours and expectations of your people. How do you deal with people who don't behave in the way that you'd like them to?
It's a really good question, and it's something we actually had to address when some people didn't, being honest, some people didn't think that we were addressing it. We've had to take a steer from HR formalities of having conversations with people, understanding what their challenges are, whether things lean into formal issues or not formal issues. Generally, the behaviours are set to give us a steer on the tone of the business and the tone of the team and which direction we need to take. Certainly, the ones that there's a few in there, and I didn't go through all of them. I went through one sort of set. That there are some that when they're extremely broken by people, which we've never really had, there has to be some adult conversations. I think the key is trying to nip things in the bud early and making sure as a team we're united in them and we're talking about them, even to the point where people who join us, and we've had a couple in their first 3 months, clearly haven't sit within those behaviours and on the right path for the journey that ThinkJam's on, so we haven't passed their probationary.
Makes sense. I think I'm going to have to wind it up there. I feel quite sad actually, because I think we could carry on and explore this and make the whole industry a little bit better for everyone. And those 90% of people who in our industry have felt some form of anxiety or stress, we really need to take care of those. So it is a moral obligation to do that. So thank you all panel, it's brilliant. And thank you, James, for your research piece. That is available, I'm guessing, to people.
Yeah, absolutely. I could quickly paste it in the feed if that's helpful.
Yeah, that would be great.
Right now, let me go find it.
Well, or we can circulate it after. For those of you who couldn't keep pace with the number of ideas floating out, we have recorded this session and we can make it available. I'd also like to mention that, you know, the whole thing about mental health champions, mental health first aiders came up, and it is something that the Alliance offer as a training module. So we're committed, and we're about to launch a charter that will obligate agencies to certainly think about how they deal with well-being and appoint and train mental health champions. And we're working with other organisations to help us in that quest. So this was the penultimate session in our Festival of Happiness. Again, a fantastic insight into the whole industry and mental well-being. We have just one session left. It's at 5 o'clock this evening, and it's about finding your voice. Not only finding your own voice, which will help you feel better and feel better connected, but also giving other people in your organisation an opportunity to express themselves. And I think we've heard from our 3 speakers today, successful agencies have systems in place that will listen carefully to their employees. So giving them a voice is critical. You can learn tools and techniques for that this evening at 5 o'clock. So you're all welcome. It's all free. And I think it's been a great week. And I really do thank you, panelists, for sharing your inner secrets and being so open with them. So thank you very much indeed.
Absolutely.
See you at 5.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers,
Bye.
Graham.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.